Hello everybody, long time no see. Welcome back to Tam Talks Tanks. Now we have, well I say I have been really bad and I have not been keeping up with maintenance as much as I should be. I've done water changes and it looks like it's fine, but the flow rate of the filter has decreased, I've noticed. Even when I've increased the flow rate on the canister itself, it's still not doing much, and I think it's because of the pre-filter sponge. So I'm gonna show you how to clean that now, and hopefully you can learn something from it. And I've learned my lesson about putting off tank maintenance, so please join me. Hello, it's future Tamara. I said that it was just going to be a video about cleaning that one. I said it was going to be about cleaning that, but ultimately I decided to show you how to do routine tank maintenance as well as clean the pre-filter sponge. So enjoy. So first of all, we're going to use this bucket and a siphon to drain the water part way to make our job a lot easier. And in the meantime, we can just do a water change, bit of tank maintenance. One important thing to note, very important, switch off your heater. Otherwise, the mechanics inside it, the mechanisms inside it will fry because they're designed to be in water and disperse the heat through the water. If they don't have the chance to do that, they will overheat, and the best case scenario is that your heater will break. The worst case scenario is it's going to boil your water and your fish. It is so important. Please turn off your heaters. So with a siphon, there are a couple of different ways that you can do it. You can have a hose like this, just a simple hose. This one is bent, kinked, and it's really horrible to use, but I'll demonstrate it just to show you. So you put one part of the tubing into the water like so, you can see it in there, and the other part you're going to suck on the end, and I have a trick for this that's going to save you getting so much water in your mouth. So have a suck on the end. So I said I was going to show you. I tried to show you. My thumb was in my mouth, but I underestimated the length of my tubing. So the idea is that when the water gets to about here, you want to put your thumb over and just let gravity do the work. And when you're done with it, simply take out the top piece, and it's as easy as that, and hopefully you don't get tank water in your mouth. If you do, it's not going to kill you, just spit it out. It's a bit unpleasant, but if the fish are drinking it, you'll be alright. The second way is my preferred way, and I didn't used to use anything like this. I was a siphon sucker, and that was it. Any other way was cheating. But I have since learned, because my partner got me this as a random present. Like, if it works great. If it doesn't, no harm done. So this has a little pump on the end, and it has a little whatchamacallit, a little netty type thing that's going to stop tons of debris getting sucked up and larger fish. You might get some shrimp sucked up still, so it's very important that you check your bucket. It's always good to have a white bottom, because it means that if there are any little critters in there, they're going to show up against the white background. Let's get this in here. Go away, duckweed. And now I don't have to suck this. I can just pump, 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 and there it goes. And if you need a bit more suction, just keep pumping. And the nice thing about this is you don't have to have a higher level. You can have a similar sort of level. It can't be lower, but if you have it around the same level from top to bottom, then it'll still work. You just have to keep pumping it. As it comes. And I've put in as much water as I can carry comfortably. So you can't really see it because it's a grey background rather than a white background on the sides. It was the best bucket I could get. But it's filled up to just beneath the white part of the bucket. And I'm going to show you what you can do with that water. We're going to take this out there and let me show you just how easy it is. And that is going to bring tons of nutrients from your tank into your back garden. It's going to feed your plants. You can do it with house plants. I wouldn't recommend it if it's really, really, really grotty water, really dirty. But if it's just routine maintenance water, go for it. Tons and tons of nitrogen in that water. There's absolutely no harm in it. Water your plants with your tank water. It saves you watering with your tap water or faucet if you're in the US or that general area. Yeah, so it's liquid gold. And even better is what we're going to do once we've emptied the tank. Let's go. Now, when I say empty the tank, I don't actually mean we're gonna like completely drain it. I just mean we're gonna take it down to about there, maybe a little bit higher, because when you're doing maintenance regularly, you don't have to, especially when you've got so many plants in your tank. They're gonna help to suck up all of that waste that the fish are producing. This is really topping it up, and when you introduce new water, it's introducing minerals that the plants might be missing. Like if you have calcium in your water, like in Oxfordshire, where I'm located, there's quite a lot, quite a lot of calcium, but it's very good for growing shrimp. And I've found that my plants grow better down here than when I lived in Scotland. But then when I was in Scotland, I didn't really know what I was doing, so you know, I could be wrong about the water. So definitely make sure you don't overfill your bucket. You don't want it to be full to the brim, because when you lift up the tank end of your siphon, there's still water in here that's going to come down into your bucket. So you really don't want to overfill it, because if you do, you're going to make a big mess on the carpet or your floor in general, whatever floor you use. We use carpet here quite a lot in the UK. And not only will you end up with a wet carpet, it might end up smelly depending on what is going on with your water. And your partner's probably going to hate you. I've made that mistake before. Don't be like me. Learn from my mistakes. Don't overfill your buckets. You can always go and get more. So now we've lowered the water level a little bit. We're not quite onto the pre-filter sponge, but now we can lower this even more and start to suck up any any poo, any sort of food debris that might have been left, or in my case, a lot of snail shells, because I have had fish that really enjoy slurping them up. Maybe a dead leaf there that I'll get at some point. Not right now because it won't go through the net. I'll probably be catching quite a few small shrimp, but I can show you how to fix those as well. And in fact, I've got quite a lot of snail shells on this, so let me show you how to get rid of them. One hand over, cup, continue to hold, let that water drain into your bucket, tilt it upwards so you're not going to make a lot of mess and upset your partner. And literally as simple as that, lots of snail shells, and they'll get emptied into your bucket. I've got a little shrimpy as well, caught by hand, back into the tank you go. Quite a few little shrimp actually. Goodness, this is going to be fun, playing cat and mouse. That's fine. Let me get the rest. Oh, hello. Let me get the rest of this side. Again, you want to be very careful about overfilling your bucket. Oh, hello plant. Well, it turns out there's quite a lot of poo at the bottom of my sand, but it was hiding. There's a little snail shell hiding in there. Okay. Let me just grab the equipment that we need to rescue the little baby shrimp. Now, this is what I use. Literally, it's one of the Tropica, I think it's a Tropica one, where they have the kind of plant growth starts. I saved this because I thought it would be useful, and my goodness, has it been so useful. Would recommend keeping them if you get them. You can use a net. I find this a lot easier because when this goes in the water, you'll see what I mean in a minute, it almost turns invisible and the shrimp can't see it, so they don't get so scared, and you can gently guide them in, and then empty as much water as you can, and then transport the shrimp back into your tank. Let me show you. Okay, we're back to holding the camera by hand because my tripod doesn't have a way to do it, to face down. But you can see there's quite a lot of shrimp. There's one there, there's quite a few little ones hiding, like there. And you try to rescue as many shrimp as you can. There's one. See, it's a lot easier to see them on a white background, isn't it? Even if it is speckled with poo and snail shells and things like that. So yeah, let's catch them. So as you can see, you know, for a shrimp, that is pretty invisible. So let's see just how invisible it is. And I'll try to capture this on camera, but I have to look through, like there's one. Oh, there it's gone. That's it, and it just goes straight into the plastic container. I'm really sorry if you didn't get that, but there'll be more to see in a minute. Just going to empty out the water, and it's going to try and travel back up, usually, especially the smaller ones. This one's quite big as far as tiddlers go. And that is enough water to just drop it back in. No problems. Let's go again. They're going to get a wee bit spooked, so that's all right. It's a lot easier with two hands because you can sort of guide them rather than rely on them being dumb enough to trap themselves. But you saw that one go straight in, and it really is so simple when you have a clear container to scoop them up with. That'll do it. Don't want to stress them out too much. But it's a bit of a lengthy process. It's a bit of a pain in the bum, this, but you got to do what you got to do. And I would rather not have a lot of dead shrimpies on my hands. Obviously, we're only human, so if there are any that we don't see, then, you know, it is what it is, which is quite sad, but we're not perfect. If you miss a couple, I mean, you're not going to know if you miss them unless you deliberately miss them, are you? But if you try your best, don't feel horrible about it, because when you think about it, I'm very you know, pro animal rights and everything. You know, I'm a vegetarian. You know, I have very little dairy in my diet and all the rest of it. I won't preach or anything like that. Do what you want. But it's just to say I'm very, very pro animal rights, and I cooked a shrimp by accident. I found that shrimp enjoy duckweed, so I took them out of my bowl. I took the duckweed out of my bowl, and I tried very, very hard to get all the little shrimp back into the bowl out of the duckweed. But some of them, one of them, found its way back into the duckweed, and I didn't notice before I put it in the microwave. And it ended up being some nice protein for the other shrimp. And what I'm trying to say is, this is, you know, it's the circle of life. Maybe if a shrimp gets tossed into the garden, it's maybe not the nicest way for it to go. But they're very, very, very simple animals. And obviously, I mean, look at this thing. It does feel fear. But you can only do what you can do, and it won't live very long out of water. Go on then. That one just walked straight in. Much easier in a plastic tub. Oh, and it went straight out. Ah, well. Here. Come on. There you go. I think you might be the same one. A little dafty. If you don't have a garden, you can, or if you don't have a garden and you don't have house plants, you can just, you know, tip this waste like down the toilet. Try and separate your solids out. It does get processed. Usually it gets processed by your water companies. Unfortunately, there have been some scandals that have come to light in recent years with Thames Water, where they've been dumping raw sewage into places like the River Windrush. So I can only imagine how many invasive species have been introduced into local ecosystems because, well, people flush their stuff down the toilet, be it plants or little shrimp like Neocaridina, like these guys. You know, by accident, don't get me wrong, if you don't realise that there are little shrimp in here, you saw the size of those last ones, they're tiny, then, you know, of course they're going to get introduced. You can only do what you can do. Aha, I've spotted one. Right there. Come here. Up you come. Don't hide under the snail shell. And you come. There we go. No. You flicked out. There it is again. Nice. Easy as that. The bottom looks invisible. They can't tell that they've been trapped until it's too late, and then I pour them back out because I'm being careless. So in regards to native species like invasives and all that, don't have to worry too much about duckweed here in the UK, because there are a lot of species endemic to the UK, including this one, Lemna minor. So if this ends up in natural waterways, then, you know, it already exists there. The main problem with releasing native stuff from your fish tanks is the risk of introducing disease, which isn't the best. But again, you can only do what you can do as a hobbyist. We do our best, and if water companies aren't doing their jobs, that's very sad. But ultimately, the hobbyist isn't to blame there, because we pay our taxes that should be going towards these things. Or not even taxes, because they're private companies. We pay the private companies to deal with it properly, and they don't. Scotland's is different because your water is included in your council tax, but it's not in England. So we have to pay private companies such as Thames Water, and they go about dumping raw sewage in local ecosystems. And I would love to go kayaking or canoeing in the local rivers, or even go for a swim, be with nature, but I don't want to, because I don't want to be paddling in poo. Anyone else? Yeah, there's a little one. You might not be able to see that. Little titchy down there that's just gone over here. There's another one. Oh my goodness, there are so many. I mean, you might decide that you can't be bothered with all this. If you don't, you know, if you don't really care. Oh, hello, I've got two in here. If you don't really care that much, they are good fertiliser for the plants, or in your compost bin. I mean, I wouldn't personally, but I mean, there are, as far as I'm aware, there's no welfare laws in regards to invertebrates. At least there are very limited laws. Like when I was in university, I had to put invertebrates into alcohol to kill them, and I can only imagine how much that must have hurt. But because they don't have spines, they don't have a central nervous system as such, in the same way that we do. So we just kind of figure, as a species, we just think, oh yeah, they don't feel pain whatsoever, when it's very clear that they do to some capacity at the very least. Come on, who have we got? I know we've got one little titchy one in there. There's one. And again, we're human. We are not perfect. If you end up missing a couple of shrimp, you've done your best. You know, when you have so many shrimp like this, it's very difficult to be sure that you've collected them all up. I'm sure there's still some in there, but it's very difficult to find them. I can give it one last swirly around to try to find any more. And if I see any, like that one, I'll grab it. There we go. Saved your life. But of course they just want to hide because they think that they're in danger. Well, they are in danger, but they don't understand that you're trying to help them. Another swirly. Kick them up from where they're hiding. Sometimes they're easier to spot if they're swimming, because they'll swim with the flow and then they'll swim against it a wee bit. But honestly, with this much debris, it's quite tricky. Is that one? No, that's just a bit of debris. There's one though. There we go, into the pot. But you can see that that was practically invisible in there. We do our best. Yeah, let's get this back into the carton. Okay, now the other side. Okay, now we've got the water level down a little bit. Let me show you how to tackle that bad boy that you can't really see. Hang on. I've closed over one of my curtains so that you can actually see what's going on the important side of the tank, because if you can't see the pre-filter sponge, you're not going to get to see what this is for. So I'm going to make sure that I turn off the filter so that my little buddies don't get all sucked up into it. Let's do that first. And the nice thing about having the sponge filter going over on this side is there's still something going on in the tank. There's still some sort of circulation and filtration happening, even if it's not a beefy one. So we're going to remove the lid if we can. In this case, we can drain off that water. And get the rest of the way off. Now, this allows us, just adjust that light. This allows us to have easier access into the tank. so we don't have to like cram and try and limbo our way in, which is really important when you're dealing with something that is incredibly mucky. So I've put in, just watch because this says glass, glass on glass, not a good combination, but I don't have a plastic one. So you want a container that is going to hold your pre-filter sponge. You want to lower it into the water and fill it with tank water. Now, with your free hand, you're going to remove the head of the filter and have it far tacky, and then you're going to, still in the water, move your sponge into your container and try and empty it out a little bit. And now this has made as little mess as possible inside of the tank. Please don't go in there. And find a little Java fern that we'll deal with later. Now, we do actually need some water in the bucket for this. So what we'll do is we'll use tank water, which is incredibly important, because if you rinse it down with tap water, you're going to kill all of the good bacteria that's built up on the filter sponge, and we don't want that. We want to have it as extra filtration. The same goes for the internal sponges within your filter. Always, always, always use your aquarium water, because it will save you a whole lot of bother, like a lot of bother. I used to make the mistake of hosing down my my filter sponges with a very hot shower head, because I was thinking, get it clean, get it clean, get it clean. But in aquaria, there is such a thing as too clean, because as humans, we like being clean, but nature isn't built that way, and we're trying to mimic an ecosystem. So the two are not compatible. Right, I don't want to fill it all the way up, because I want to leave some room for the squidgy. And because I haven't gone down into the substrate, there shouldn't be any baby shrimp that got sucked up. And no, there aren't. Now, if there are any little shrimp that go into the filter, it's not the end of the world. They're gonna live, they're gonna have a great time, because there's so much food for them in there. People quite often find when they have shrimp that they have a hidden little colony in their filters. I've still not had to clean my filter, so it's going to be a big surprise, I bet, when I do. So, we're going to take this pre-filter sponge off of the head, the intake, I want to say. We're going to pop this just down on the towel that we've got, and just to demonstrate how nasty this is, let me show you how quickly the colour of the water changes. And even more than that, do you know what, I'm just going to pick up the tripod. Even more than that, watch this, now that we can really do it. It gets really gunky in there, really, really gunky. And the more that you squeeze, the less of your hand that you see. So we're going to squeeze, squeeze, squeeze until the sponge is kind of visibly clean with no great no great bits of poo hanging off and all that jazz. And if you really want to, if you're a bit anal about these things, you can do this step twice. I've done it before, and the water has come out just as yucky as the first time I did it. I'm going to squeeze, and honestly, that'll do for me. Because again, there is such a thing as too clean. So now the fun bit is getting this back on here. And now I had to purchase this as a kind of third party type of thing. It didn't come with this part on it. I had to cut off this bit at the top and plug the hole, which works quite well. It just goes to show you've got to do quite a bit of DIY in the aquarium hobby. Okay, as you can see, all of those little grates are filled in. Let me just show you again. All these grates, I'm amazed that Fluval sells filters like this, because that's dangerous. I've got Chili Rasporas in there. It's a big tank, but I like having a lot of small fish in a big tank, and they could get sucked up into this. Never mind, you know, your little baby shrimplets and everything. That's one thing. Most aquarists don't have shrimp because they're not fish. Most people get into the hobby for fish. That's one thing. But there are small fish out there, and I'm amazed that Fluval would sell that. So shame on you, Fluval. You make good products, but shame on you. I like my canister filter, don't get me wrong, but it should be fish safe. I shouldn't have to buy a third party sponge just to make my tank safe for my fish. Anyway, that's on now. And now we have the fun bit, another fun bit of simply placing it back on. And don't push down too hard or up. I mean, I know my canister filter comes out at the bottom, that might confuse people. It's purpose made for this kind of filter. So you just want to kind of squash and squeeze, keep rotating back and forth until it feels secure. It's not going to pop in, but that's okay. And that's that. Now, I have a canister filter, which, as you can see, as you saw, needs to have a pre-filter sponge in order to make it safe for my fish, because my fish are small. You might have a hang-on back filter, you might have an internal filter that has big slots in it, that has big slots in it that you want to cover up. You can use sponges for that. You can also use things like tights, pantyhose in North America, which do work. I did that, but they get clogged very quickly. A pre-filter sponge is much better because you get that extra biological filtration, mechanical filtration, and it doesn't clog up quite so quickly. It ends up saving you time with cleaning your main filter because it doesn't get clogged up so quickly, which is excellent. Let me just turn this back on. And we can see it's working again. And it's going to fart a little bit. Oh, that flow is much better. Excellent. I'm just going to reduce that flow a little bit because my fishies are quite small and I'd rather they didn't get blown all over the tank. And now that disgusting bucket of gunky swamp water is going to be liquid gold for my outdoor plants. So let's go water the plants. I was thinking about just holding the camera, but I'm going to take you with me on the tripod, and I'm going to be really clumsy and I'm going to bump into things, and I hope that just makes it all the more entertaining for you. I also hope that I'm not the only person in the world who wears their trainers like slippers when they go into the garden or the yard, because I don't know, I think it might just be laziness. But here we are. Welcome to garden a la Tamara and partner. So I watered over there before. It's gotten quite a bit. So I'm going to just water the stuff that didn't get a chance to get watered before. That is really disgusting. Like, ugh. It's like swamp water, but you've got to make sure that you really stir it up, otherwise all the poo is going to settle down at the bottom. Some in the trees. And now I get to refill the tank. So now we have the happy job of adding water back into the aquarium, and you'll be able to see I haven't actually taken out that much water. I've probably taken about, what do you call that, about 20%, something like that, 15-20% of the water, which is totally fine, because if you're doing routine water changes like this, then you're keeping on top of it. You don't have to do like a 75% water change or a 50% water change every week, unless your tank is incredibly overstocked. This one has a lot of small fish in it. It used to have more, but tragedy struck. And, ugh. But the bio load realistically isn't that high. So as long as you're testing your water, you can use test strips, which will make the job easier to do by just dipping it in. It's not going to give you the most accurate reading, but it'll give you a ballpark, and really a ballpark is all you need for the most part. Unless something has gone terribly wrong, then you want to get your liquid test kit out. Some people swear by the liquid test kits, and really it's up to you. Make up your own mind. I like both because it's as easy as just dipping a test strip into the water and waiting a few seconds to a minute to read the test. And everyone has the time to do that, rather than like taking 15 minutes to do a whole set of liquid tests. So it's up to you. There's pros and cons to both, but ultimately, as long as you're happy and your livestock are happy, what's the issue? Okay, so my water conditioner, I'm not a sponsor, I'm not affiliated in any sort of way. I use Prime. This is a very concentrated solution. It's dechlorinator. It does more than just dechlorinate. It also, I don't know the science behind it, but I think it binds to the heavy metals that could be found within your tap water, and that also helps to keep your tap water safe. It allegedly detoxifies ammonia temporarily. There have been a lot of disputes about that. I don't know. It might. The manufacturers say that it does. but people have tested this theory and they have found that there is still ammonia present in the water, but your liquid test kits don't differentiate between ammonia and ammonium, and they're two different entities anyway. Nevertheless, despite all that controversy, this is a fantastic dechlorinator. I'm not going to say that it detoxifies ammonia because I don't know, but I can say without a doubt that this is a fantastic dechlorinator, and this is going to remove your chlorines and it's going to remove your chloramines. The difference between the two is chlorine is the element. It's the stuff that you find in your tap water and your swimming pools, and it evaporates into the atmosphere. It gives that sort of that smell that's quite reminiscent of bleach, because most household bleaches are kind of chlorine based to some degree. But chloramine, it uses ammonium, I think. I could be wrong about that. It uses some sort of nitrogen compound. I think it is ammonium. I'll correct myself here if I'm wrong. But chloramine, it doesn't evaporate, and water companies have started using chloramine because of that fact, because it's more stable, so they don't have to keep pumping in chlorine, I suppose. But it does mean that you can't be sneaky anymore and just leave your tap water out sitting unless you know that there's no chloramine in it. So this, you want to shake it up, and I've measured how many litres go into my bucket, roughly 9 litres, and I've worked that out as about 2 drops. I like to overdose a little bit. Prime is one of those happy chemicals where you can overdose it a little bit to no ill effect. It'll deplete the oxygen in the water slightly, but look at how much water is in there compared to how much fresh water we're putting in. I have a bubbler going through the sponge filter. Oxygen isn't going to be a problem unless I dump the whole thing in. So 2 drops should be enough per bucket. I like to play it safe and just add a few more. 1, 2, 3, 4. Which is absolutely going to remove all of the ammonia. And now I can stir it up. Now, I did it in that order to demonstrate to you how to do it. You can absolutely add your dechlorinator before you put your tap water in your bucket, which will make it mix more thoroughly and everything else. It's probably better, but I just wanted to show you how to go about doing it. Prime is very concentrated, so it will treat more water per bottle compared to the likes of your Tetra water conditioners and things. That's not to say that Tetra doesn't work, it's just less concentrated, so you have to use more of it, and you're going to spend more money by doing that. Whereas if you can get like a little pipette, you can order them from Amazon, or I don't really like Amazon very much, but it is very good for fish stuff. But you'll be able to find pipettes in places like your chemists or your pharmacies, and probably even supermarkets, really. So yeah, that's fine. So you can either, if you have like a system that goes from your taps, you can dose your tank with Prime and have at it, follow the manufacturer's instructions. You have to use more prime if you're doing that. I don't have that technology, so I'm just going to slowly dump it in. You can just do it cup by cup if you're worried about disturbing the tank. I'm not that worried about it. As long as you go slow and steady, you're going to be fine, but it's up to you. Your mileage may vary. Make sure that you don't lift with your back and you lift with your knees. You only have one back in life. It's important to treasure it. And literally, I'm just pouring it in. And I'm not going too fast. Some of the shrimp are getting a bit of a roller coaster ride, but that's okay. One thing that I should have mentioned is make sure that your temperatures align somewhat. So it doesn't need to be 100% spot on, as long as it's within a range of like a couple of degrees either way. You'll be able to feel that with your fingers, or most people will. If you think that you have trouble with it, just use a thermometer. But most people, I think, it's very easy to tell if water's hotter or colder if you just touch with your finger. But some more sensitive fish species, yeah, absolutely, you'll want to, check your temperatures. Especially if you're doing a larger water change. A water change that's smaller, like this one, shouldn't be too much of an issue. Getting to the end of the bucket now. Oh, you guys are getting very excited. You think that you're getting fed, don't you? Okay, and that is how you do it. One more should do it. So, I want to show you something that I've just realised I've been looking at while I've been filling up my tank, but maybe not everybody's will have this. I'm just going to move the tripod, it's quite precarious. But there's a sticker right there. Let me just try and zoom in. That has a fill line, that dotted line there. According to the manufacturers, you don't want to go over that line because water is really heavy. Water weighs about 1 kilogram per litre. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's exact, 1 kilogram per litre. I don't know how much that is in pounds per gallon because we learn the metric system in the UK, as do most of Europe, so I'm afraid you're going to have to do your own conversion. But really you don't want to overfill the tank because water is heavy. That's 240 litres, give or take a bit, because of all the decorations. That's really heavy. And the more water that you have pressing against the glass, it's going to want to come out, and the more at risk you are of leaks, be it through cracks forming in your glass or through the seals at the side perishing. Don't overfill your tanks, it's not worth it, especially if you have a lid, because that water's not really going to go anywhere. It's fine, you don't have to overfill your tanks, and you can just do a water change or top up your water. It's not that big of a deal. So I just thought I'd show you that. I do have a little bit more leeway to go, so I am going to keep filling it up just a little bit more. I'm not going to overfill it, but I just thought you ought to know. And literally with that, I am at the fill line. So I'm going to put the rest of this in the garden so that I don't waste it. Because there's no point in just flushing that down the toilet. It's just such a waste. And people might argue that watering the garden with this water is a bit of a waste, but it is better than flushing it down the toilet. And with that, you have hopefully now learned about how to do routine maintenance on your tank. And trust me, it is so much easier to just get it done every week. Because if you do it every week, you just need to take out that much. And you saw how few buckets that was for a 240 litre tank. If you've got a smaller tank, it's even fewer. So just do it every week. If you do it every 2 weeks, then you're going to have to double the amount of water that you're changing, and that's harder on your fish because you will have pH swings. I've got driftwood in there. You might not be able to see it that well because the sun's shining through the window, but I do have driftwood in there, and the tannins in the wood decrease the pH of the tank. So my tank sits at around 7.4-ish. But the tap water comes out at about 7.6. So if I'm changing a lot of water, it is still a small shift in pH to the eye, because on paper there's not that much of a difference between 7.4 and 7.6, but pH is on a logarithmic scale, so actually it's quite a step up. So the more frequently you can do those water changes, as in not every day, don't do it every day, but every week, that's totally fine. The more frequently that you can do them, with once a week generally being the most frequently that you'll do, the less change that your fish go through and the less stress that they undergo. Because fish, not just fish, shrimp, you know, your aquarium inhabitants, they like constantness, they don't like change. You know, if we were suddenly flung into a sauna and expected to live in that would be horrible. So I expect it's much the same for fish, and unfortunately fish don't have the same sort of tolerance to change that we do, and they are the subjects of the environments that we give them, so we should do our best by our fishy friends, and the most that you can do is your best. So with that, I hope that you've learned something today. I know I enjoyed making this video for you. If you like the video, please feel free to give it a like, a comment, and maybe consider subscribing to the channel. We're over 200 subscribers now. Last I checked, last night, we were at 212. So if you want to bump that up to 213 and so on and so forth, feel free, but don't feel like you have to, because I don't know, don't feel like you have to. But if you do, thank you very much. And regardless, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.